Welcome to SteamLUG Cast. This is episode 11 of Season 2. We're recording it on the 30th of May. I have with me DerRidda.
Hello!
Cheese is not with us at the moment, so we're just going to chat about the last fortnight's news and the next fortnight's news.
Indeed.
So what have you been playing, DerRidda, this week?
I've been playing a lot of The Witcher 2, the fresh port that came to Linux. 40 hours, an entire playthrough of the part I hadn't played before. I've played a lot of Breach and Clear, and I've started up Shadowrun Returns Dragonfall.
So, I thought The Witcher 2 was quite a lengthy game. How have you completed the main story? Does it have side quests?
Yeah, it has a main story and lots of side quests, and I pretty much made a playthrough of everything I could do and find. And the game pretty much bifurcates after the first chapter, and you can either go that way or the other. And before I've only played one path, and so I've chosen the other one this time around.
Oh, okay. So it's got a completely different part of the game. Do you not get to see the other segment at all? Or
Yes.
I haven't played the game much, so I wouldn't.
Yes, after chapter 1, it's pretty much... The second chapter is almost completely different for both paths. And the third one, it kind of converges again. So, what have you been playing?
I really haven't been playing that much, beyond just sort of doing QA testing for Humble. We're going to talk about it later, but the most recent Humble bundle has been out for a few days now, and I must have spent the last 2 months working quite hard on Skulls of the Shogun on not just Linux, but their Android port as well, testing across all my devices and multiplayer and the rest, and Soap and Wildtail had a few games with me in that. Symphony we got at the weekend to test, so played the hell out of that. I quite like that game. It's I don't know what you call it. It's rhythm shooter thing. You put your music in, it generates the level with little wave attacks of little enemies. It's quite calming and soothing, and the boss battles are a bit ridiculous, but
Yeah, I have tested that, but I don't really like it. It pretends to be a rhythm game. I think it doesn't really fit. I don't think the action fits to the music, actually.
it certainly follows the beats, but with the way it sort of changes the environment to be deeper red when it sort of has a stronger beat, I didn't think that sort of particularly fell in tandem with the actual music. And unlike most games that rely on your music, it's one of the ones that the noise of the actual enemies masks the music, which surprised me. It's harder to hear your music while you're shooting things, which to me is the other way around. Compared to some of the other audio games where you increase the volume as you do well and the rest. So I guess that's all we've been playing that we want to discuss.
Yes.
We've had a fairly light fortnight for gaming events. We had Gear Up. We only had a few players turn up for that. I turned up, but I couldn't actually get the game to run. Bear in mind it is early access still, and according to reports it's an awful lot better than it was when it first launched. So we're hoping that we'll have an event for that in a few months' time, and we'll see what that's like. We played Fistful of Frags, which is a free-to-play Western FPS that's actually running on Source. It's a really good fun game. Were you there for the event, DerRidda?
No, I played some Fistful of Frags before and just figured out it wasn't my kind of game, so I skipped the event.
Oh, okay. But I really enjoyed that. Played for a few hours. I was late, as I tend to be for the events, but it was really good fun. I think we're going to put that into the roster to have quite regularly. The other games we've played in the last fortnight are Team Fortress 2 and Left 4 Dead 2, which are the regulars. We haven't booked any future events at the moment for June, so if you have any suggestions for games that you'd like to play in multiplayer, or maybe just single-player games that you'd like some advice on, we could play Don't Starve, and I know that's coming with a multiplayer soon, so send us all your suggestions, guys. That would be lovely.
Yes, indeed. Put them all in. We could really... I mean, you're always invited to make suggestions for the events. We are not some benevolent dictator that says what you ought to play on the weekends. So
Exactly.
always keep them coming.
We have said that if anyone wants to volunteer to look after events for us, we would love that. It would be awesome if we had a few more people to just arrange events and manage them, and just work in the community a bit more, take some of the pressure off. Not there's much pressure in playing games, but it is quite a bit of a time sink when it's every weekend.
Yeah, there's only one limitation we have decided upon to limit the amount of vast games we decide from, because we're SteamLUG, we choose stuff that is on Steam only.
Yes, that is one of the sad caveats that we do have. But we are not against people in our community organising games to play that aren't on Steam, and just do it on our discussion forums and the rest. So yeah, let's move on to Steam and Valve news. I added this note because I thought it might be something worth discussing. Alienware put out a piece of, I'm not sure you could call it public relations really. They had an interview in a couple of gaming news sites, and the titles basically were Alienware predict their Steam machines will be least profitable system they ever sell. Which is a bit negative really if you think about it. Most of the meat of the article tends to be, they were trying to explain that margins will be thin so that they will be cost effective for gamers. So if you want a Steam machine, it won't cost you an awful lot of money. And I think that it got a bit flipped in the explanation, and a lot of sites ran with Alienware is going to lose money and stuff like this.
It didn't get flipped in the explanation. The gaming and tech press is simply lazy as butts, took that one quote and ran with it. And they were full well knowing what they were doing, because
Link bait?
that way you can generate clickbait, and clickbait makes you money.
Sometimes I don't always think it's clickbait. I genuinely think some people misunderstand, or I mean, they can't have deliberately gone out of their way to say that, can they? Really? Oh well. So along with that lovely positive story, we have another one. Valve came out and said that their Steam controller is going to be delayed till 2015.
Yes, and that will probably include Steam machines, because it doesn't seem feasible to release the Steam machines without the controller that makes PC gaming on consoles feasible.
Yes, the problem there, of course, is that might, again, be further lazy reporting. As far as I know, none of the sites contacted Doug or the rest of Valve to see if what they've implied from that is actually true. So, we don't know. Again, it's something that we might hear at E3 or Gamescom, and maybe they probably are delayed, but we shall see.
Okay, do we need a tech segment?
For the last 2 or 3 casts, I've been putting stuff in the notes that have gone in gaming news that probably could go in a tech area, and that's why I said, do we probably need it? With Unreal Engine now having fairly regular updates that discuss things, and Unity now publicly talking about their changes, I thought maybe we could bump some things out of gaming news into a tech segment.
We could.
Maybe that gives us some room to discuss other technologies and the rest. I don't know. We accept feedback for that. You can email us. So Crytek announced on their forum today that CryAction and CryInput source code will be available next week.
What's CryAction?
I have no idea. I think it's the scripting engine built into their CryEngine.
Like ActionScript or whatever?
Something like that. In the same way as CryInput's their input libraries. Compared to something like Unreal, it's a bit of a mediocre, is that rude to say, approach to getting some more of that interaction with the open source community. But it's still a good thing. Any thoughts, DerRidda?
Not really. More on the licensing for their audio middleware.
Yes.
Because that is absolutely stupid. You can pick the engine up for cheap, like, what's it, $9 a month, and it's royalty free when you're going to publish your game. But pretty much the audio middleware that's tied into the engine is WWise, and you only get an evaluation copy with your subscription. And to actually release something with that audio middleware in it, you need to pay $700 per platform.
Yes, it's
so all the awesome indie licensing out of the window for good.
Exactly. The other interesting thing is Unreal Engine's been retweeting, is it Coherence UE or something? Saying that, and they've been saying that it's something like $13 a month for the user interface library that you can get as a middleware for Unreal. And you think, hang on, that's more expensive than the entire engine. Why would someone do that? It's going to be interesting to see how middleware usage shifts now that an awful lot of the engines are far cheaper than the middleware that's built upon. Whether they're going to get cheaper, or whether it's not the end, but the retiring of WWise and other things like
I hope
and the rest.
Middleware dies in a fire and people shift to open source alternatives for that with permissive licensing.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
There is no need why everybody should pay a boatload of money over and over again for something like that when you could invest your engineering efforts collectively and have a better product for everybody.
And now here is where we contact Iculus and say, you've been talking frequently about OpenAL and Patreon. Why don't you combine those two and do a really good open audio library? Just a thought.
Yeah, just a thought, but that man is quite busy, so
Yeah.
you better be Patreoning him up the wazoo.
I don't think I'd want to go there for a Patreon, but okay. Unity 4.5 has been released, and it has plenty of Linux-specific fixes. I had a quick look over, and quite a few of the mouse issues might be fixed.
Yeah, that on-application focus sounds like it might be the one that was plaguing me, where pretty much the game just lost focus when I was looking around.
There are also some related to asset loading. The engine seems to unload stuff, and I wonder if that might fix that issue I have in Rochard, where the lasers just vanish for no good reason. Changing a level. So all around, that looks pretty good. Now we have to politely encourage developers to update to Unity 4.5 if they can.
With a polite leaping stick, with a monocle and top hat.
Very. If anything is beyond sort of, please, would you look into this? You're doing it wrong.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about gaming news. As I mentioned a little earlier, Humble Bundle has released a new bundle. It's called the PC and Android 11 bundle. It includes Symphony, a wave-based shooter that builds the levels based on your music, Draw a Stick Man Epic.
How is the actual Draw a Stick Man Epic game? I went to the website and there are like 2 little demo games and you can just draw a penis on everything. And in the end I had an elevator that was flying away with penis wings. It was entertaining for what it's worth, but I don't know how deep that game goes, how it might actually capture me.
I have no idea about that game. I looked at it and thought, well, I'll add that to my library, but I won't download it for a bit. No idea about that. Galcon Fusion, which we've mentioned a few times on the cast, and Legends are included. And in the Beat the Average, Skulls of the Shogun, which I mentioned, that's a Flibbit title if anyone's interested. There's also Metal Slug 3, which is a coin-op style platformer. It's hard as balls, very dated. I don't know how you describe that.
Well, it's Neo Geo classic style. That is either a token of quality for you or the opposite.
It seems like one of those games that's sort of Super Meat Boy from 20 years ago or something. I mean, it's one of these games that every 2 minutes the mechanic you use to defeat whatever you're fighting changes. So you're fighting a boss and you've defeated a third of it, and it just changes its stance completely, and you die. And there's also Field Runners 2, Breach and Clear, and there's more to be announced later.
Yeah, Breach and Clear is a bit interesting. If you have taken a look at that, don't think of it as a Frozen Synapse-like. It's way more arcadey, simpler, you have less control, and it suffers from being a mobile game a bit. But it's quite fun, so if you just like some simple, SWAT-like gameplay action.
You mentioned Frozen Synapse. Is it turn-based tactical then? Or?
Yes, it's turn-based tactical and close quarters, room clearing and breaching. It's not as lethal as Frozen Synapse. Your guys can take quite a few hits, so can the enemies. And it's not as precise, but if you thought Frozen Synapse was too hard, you maybe should check that one out. But you don't have as much control as Frozen Synapse. For example, it's quite literally impossible to stack around a flash grenade, to stack your team around a flash grenade and have them all move in precisely, because you don't really have control over the timing.
Have you played Armor Tactics at all?
I have played it a bit and it's not that good. It really isn't. Breach and Clear is better.
So you'd recommend? Okay. So you would recommend that over it?
Yes.
Good. That's good to hear.
So GOG is posting some new job offerings, and one of it is a Linux tech specialist. It states that tech specialist should have knowledge of Wine and DOSBox. So I think everybody with his senses where they should be has expected DOSBox from GOG, but I mean this is pretty much the confirmation that they will be relying on Wine quite a bit for their Linux releases, which should surprise nobody.
No, I think everyone accepted that the majority of GOG's titles have been DOS and Wine on Mac as well. So it's, and on Windows actually for quite a lot of their legacy titles, so it's not a surprise there. It's more scary the other requirements for the job. As I skimmed through that, you've got to meet deadlines, but also work around all the bugs that you find in the games that they're trying to build. So it's going to be quite a stressful job, I'd imagine. But if you're quite competent with Linux and you're interested in games as well, you should get in touch with them.
And you should be willing to work in Poland.
Yes, their lovely head office is in Warsaw. Awesome.
Which is a beautiful city, I hear.
I've heard that too. So, Metro Redux is coming. Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light have been announced that they're both getting an update. This is a paid update, so it's not going to be the title you've already got in your Steam library. They are updating some content, they are patching the engine, they are putting in some improvements. We don't know much beyond a couple of screenshots at the moment, but you can pre-order that together on the Steam store, and that means that Metro 2033 will be coming to Linux sometime at the end of the summer, I think it was.
Which is nice. I haven't finished that, and that will give me reason to do so.
I got a decent amount through Last Light, and a couple of the crashing bugs were frustrating me, I have to say. But that was literally the week after launch, so I don't know if that's fixed since then. But
yeah, Last Light I finished, but Metro 2033 I had for a while and just rage quit when that part came where you have to...
I've not played it. So.
But some other people might know. Yeah, you just have to piggyback a boy on your shoulders, and it's horrible. It makes your controls all floaty, and I don't know if they have ever carried anything on their back, but it doesn't work like that. It's simply frustrating.
It is a literal escort mission.
Yeah.
Can the child die or something? Are there snipers or...?
No, he's on your back, and if you get clawed, he doesn't take damage, but you die, and your controls are awful in that moment. And you have to passage through an area where there are unlimited respawning enemies, and so you have to get through there quickly.
Ugh. I had heard that game was quite a bit harder than Last Light.
Absolutely.
Would you say that's true?
Especially in Ranger mode. I've played Metro Last Light in Ranger mode hardcore, and it was butts easy, never ran out of ammo, and in 2033 I pretty much backed myself into a corner at one point when I did not have enough gas mask filters, couldn't find any more, and I was pretty much dead in the water outside. I really had to reload an older save and stock up on gas mask filters.
Oh, I hate that. Well, I'm glad those are coming, and I'm glad that in the press release they put out, we're mentioned straight away with the consoles, Windows, and Linux. So, yeah, it's brilliant.
Indeed.
Feral Interactive tweeted and put out a press release that XCOM Enemy Unknown and apparently Enemy Within are going to release this summer as proper native Linux ports. Everyone should be really bloody happy about that.
Yes, that was a game that almost made me consider buying a Windows game again because it looked so awesome and interesting, but I didn't have to. Stand your ground with Linux-only games and they will come to you eventually.
Oh, that's true. Feral have a fairly decent reputation in the OS X world of porting games to Mac. They do have a fairly large game list that they've done. Borderlands, Tomb Raider, Deus Ex Human Revolution. They have, they're not a small porting house, and they haven't particularly done the smaller AA titles. They tend to be for the middling AAA. So, the first thing I did when they tweeted that, I was like, I'd love Tomb Raider as the next game you port, but Deus Ex would be lovely as well.
Yes.
But
if you even have a remote interest in that title, you should probably pile up on them and give them money. It should be profitable for them so they can make the business case and approach the people they hold rights for on games and say, look, you let us bring this one to OS X and we might be able to bring it to Linux and make more money for you and us, and because look how successful XCOM was.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they will be making the case, not us. If they can show they are making money on that, they will make the case for us, and we might get some excellent games that are in their library.
Yep, because if they've already got fairly good access to the source and they've got some build machines there that they can just say, SteamOS is coming, Steam machines are coming, we've already done these ports, it shouldn't be too much hassle to, just rebuild them with some minor tweaks. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. To go off on a quick tangent, I know I've mentioned it a couple of times on Twitter, I did buy an OS X laptop. Sadly, you can boo now.
Boo!
But I know. It was really just to install Linux on, but I've actually been having issues installing Linux on it, which is Hilarious. But in frustration, I installed Tomb Raider, which is one of their ports, and it plays very well. So I'm incredibly excited for their ports, frankly. So let's talk about Steam releases.
Among the Sleeper, the game where you play a toddler in a horror scenario. And it seems to be really freaking buggy on Linux, especially if you have an Nvidia card, which is surprising news. But there are some graphical glitches in the environment where just some random vertices are poking around the area, and you can detach your viewport from the body of your player character and look at your headless baby body, which is creepy in a way the game didn't even intend.
Why would you even try that?
It just happens automatically. You try to walk around and
Okay.
your viewport detaches. It's one of the bugs.
Now, I was trying to work out if this is a game I'd watch Jim Sterling play in like a preview. It looked kind of moody, interesting.
But it's apparently really short. People are talking about 1.5 hours to 3 hours to finish it. This is ridiculously short for the price tag it's commanding. Also, I posted an image in the chat. You can spot the headless baby and look just how creepy it looks.
It's too damn dark. So is this early access at all, or what?
No, it's a finished game. It was on Kickstarter. It got done. It is done, and it is simply that short.
Okay, that's a little surprising.
Though you might start to pick it up if you have an Oculus Dev Kit, because they have support for that, and that is where a lot of the value lies for some people.
So is it quite an involved... I mean, does it have puzzles? Is it just a linear story?
I actually don't even know how much they've changed it yet, because of these issues I can play it. I have, for one thing, it's a Unity game. I don't have my mouse freezing issue in. I just can't look around properly with a mouse movement because I just move in increments and it stalls my game, even though the FPS overall are completely fine. It's ridiculous. It's another mouse bug in a Unity game, and it's completely different this time.
I was just thinking, with you saying it's short, it might be short, but it might also be brilliant. We've had short, good games like Gone Home, so, it might still be good.
I haven't read up on it because I still want to play it, but people have been saying the ending was something they didn't expect. So it might at least go out with a bang if it is short.
Okay. There's Anomaly Defenders as well.
When exactly did Anomaly turn into a franchise people are craving? I don't get it. I absolutely don't get it.
I have no idea. Now, did I hear this as a tower defense version of?
It probably is.
I'm not even sure how you describe that game.
It's reverse tower defense. You play pretty much the creep line that is going through the towers and control them and try to go through the tower maze. And now they have pretty much reversed their reversal and made a tower defense game simply. Not like there are a few of them.
Was that sort of targeted for mobile first? Is that why it's...
The original Anomaly and the second one were definitely mobile games first.
Interesting. Okay, well that's a game. There's also Pandora First Contact. I have no idea about this game either.
It's a 4X strategy game, which I stay well clear of, except if it's Civilization, but that is a different genre, I would say, even. So, if you like, yes, if you like 4X, you should probably be taking a look at it. So it might be a bit delayed. I put it in there earlier today when it said it would be out in 4 hours, and now it's past 4 hours, and it seems to still not be out.
Steam releases. Come on, Valve, wake up.
There's also White Noise Online, which looks like Scooby-Doo, to be honest. The series Scooby-Doo. It's like an online co-op horror game where you find clues and stuff. I haven't had time to look deep into it, but it sure sounds interesting. So if anybody has played that, let's see it. If not, you might want to look into it if that tickles your fancy.
Another game that came out this week? The Witcher 2.
You might have heard of it. It is the most abysmal port we have seen on Linux today.
Well, that's a bold statement there, DerRidda.
It is a true statement. People have soon figured out after the game was released that it is in fact not a native port, but wrapped in some proprietary technology called Eon by virtual programming, and it runs worse than in Wine for most of the people. And it crashes a lot, and sound drops out, and it really is a shite fest of a port. It's an excellent game hidden behind incredibly crappy technology. And it's not like virtual programming had made a boo-boo there. They are known for really bad Mac ports as well. They are like the anti-feral games. They do the crappy one. And, well... It seems like CD Projekt have taken the PR handle on that, so we won't be hearing much from virtual programming. There has already been one patch released dealing with locale issues or non-English locales, because, of course, like every amateur port, they did not sanitize away culture info.
LCC, yeah. I mean, that's going to be such a common thing now that there needs to be a tutorial on not doing that, because it's getting rather weird for an awful lot of people, isn't it?
I don't know how many games have like LC_all English US UTF-8 command in Steam, so I can start them properly and play them properly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Problem is, what we don't want to do is give them an easy way to just put that define in a launch script, because that's probably what's going to happen, isn't it?
If you want to go ahead with that port and play The Witcher 2, you could do so if your CPU is really incredibly beefy in the single core department, because it seems to just stall there.
Or is it not good multi-core either?
No, and it's I mean, I'm playing this game now on hardware that is completely better than what I played it on back on Windows in 2011, and I still play on lower details, on lower resolution, and I still get less FPS. There was one part in the game where I had to switch to 800 by 600 for a moment because it was stalling so hard that I couldn't get through it without it.
It's just disappointing, isn't it? I went through various options to try and get it to run better, and it didn't. And I just thought, well, maybe the game's just not particularly optimized. But
no, if you buy it on Steam, you get a CD key you can redeem on GOG and get the DRM-free version. And if you want to play that game and don't mind messing around with Wine a bit, you download the DRM-free version and drop it in Wine, and you probably get better FPS. There was one guy that posted an image on his machine, native Windows version, at one spot around 100 FPS, Wine around 50 FPS in the same spot, the Eon wrapper around 12 FPS in the same spot. So that's the idea of you get of how shitty that performance is. Yeah, Roberto says Wine with CSMT patches destroys the Eon port in his case, and that's pretty much universally what you have heard. Some people say it runs well for them, but mostly they have incredibly beefy machines and still play it on lower details. They get good FPS, that's true.
Yeah.
But they don't have any basis for comparison, and they think it runs well, but it should run much better for them than it does, still.
One has to worry that if that's probably the best known game we've got at the moment, it's probably one that's going to be used to review Steam machines, if that happens. And that's going to be unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah, Kotaku Australia wrote about that, how it made a bunch of Linux gamers really unhappy. And within 24 hours of that post going up, you had some Windows dirtbags in the forums of Witcher 2 going into the Linux thread and asking, why do you even use Linux? Which is besides the point, because they offer a Linux version, it should work.
Yeah, true.
But Kotaku audience, you don't expect anything from them, not even to dump on the same pile.
No. I hadn't even heard about that article. Was it shared much at all in our community, or have I just not been looking at links recently?
No, I've only spotted it because it was linked on, I think, Linux Unplugged, where Liam from Gaming on Linux was on to discuss it with pretty much the host there.
Did we want to talk about the Gaming on Linux post or any of the Steam threads at all, or
I don't know.
Just gloss over it and say that quite a few articles and posts were written with quite lots of back and forth between people and
yes, I mean, people were
drama,
riffing on the Linux community for being mean to one of the developers of that port that came in and was talking to us. How nice. But that is, why people seem to automatically assume that if a thread is long and about something negative, it's a shitstorm. But if you start reading the original thread in the Steam forum, it starts off fairly nice. People are disappointed, say, hey, this isn't running well and this isn't native, what is this? Then the first thing people heard was a PR statement from Virtual Programming that was blatantly false, where they said
dismissive.
It's not our technology, Wine uses Windows drivers, which is absolute nonsense. And then people got pissed, and then the developer came in and said, hey guys, that was a PR guy that has no technical experience, sorry, he is wrong about that. But even then he was a bit defensive more, he was not admitting to it, he was saying, yeah, well, it's this and that, it's AMD and drivers are not good as well. So people were pushed back a bit, but the issues are obvious and nobody wants to eat bullshit. So in the end, they turned a bit more hostile, but you can't really say they started off that way. They got pushed into that.
Yeah. I mean, you can't blame them if if they've got legitimate concerns, because the port's not as good as it really could be. I think going straight for the AMD drivers suck is probably the easiest excuse that people can use at the moment, but it's not a very strong one, is it?
No, it isn't. And the free drivers worked, for example. And AMD have since released a catalyst patch that deals just with the Witcher 2 port, which is kind of nice by AMD.
That's interesting. But I think at least that will make people aware that quick and simple. Well, the thing is, it wasn't such a quick port anyway. They've been doing that for a few months now, haven't they? Because it's been listed on SteamB for quite a bit.
And I can't imagine this is much cheaper than a native port. They said they could do this because of price and middleware concerns, but you don't buy the proprietary tech from such a company, not an individual porter, for just a couple of grand. I guarantee that's a couple of tens of grands. And by the way, they said, that's another thing, they said there were middleware constraints. I myself looked up every middleware that was advertised in the splash, and everything that has to be shipped with a client exists on Linux today.
Maybe it's a cost issue with...
The engine is in-house, so that's CD Projekt's own engine.
So what other middlewares does it use? Anything?
It uses Havoc, Fmod, and pathing engine for the AI. Then there's also SpeedTree, but I don't think, unless you have like a procedurally generated terrain, you ship anything from SpeedTree with the actual client. But even that exists on Linux, so there might be another thing, but I've personally checked them and they all exist. There might be a cost fact, but it exists of it.
I was just wondering maybe that there's a cost factor in getting source access to any of those libraries, that they would much rather ship them as binaries and then just basically wrap their previous game so they didn't have to expend all that.
You know, even if you... Maybe I'm naive here, but if you put everything you can and then wrap the middleware around custom interface where you say, okay, we might now have to run that middleware in Wine and expose it to our native engine somehow. Is that even possible, or am I talking stupid here?
Well, it's possible. I mean, Eon interfaces Steamworks through their bridge, don't they? So you get a native Steam API through the Windows layer that they're using. So, I mean, it's possible to do any of that sort of stuff, but it's just surprising me that they'd go for that option for the Mac port anyway, and then still keep it around for Linux and not think that, you know, CD Projekt have their source, surely, so why have they not considered a better solution for both platforms? I don't know.
I hope, I don't want to sound mean here, but I hope that bites them in the hand so much that I'm not talking about not thinking about never porting anything to Linux, because GOG is coming to Linux, they will keep porting the stuff to Linux. It would be silly to not support it. They did the same for Mac.
Yeah.
But I hope they will never touch that company again, because their approach is fundamentally flawed. Going for wrapper technology seems to never work in any of the cases. I've looked up some of their OS X ports. They are all not excellent. Let's say there's a hierarchy there. Somewhere is Feral, somewhere is Aspire, and at the bottom is virtual programming, guaranteed.
From one of the developers that does ports, they mentioned that Eon's a good thing in some cases, and it might be that VP gets involved in more legacy ports from Windows for GOG. So it might be that, you know, titles from the 90s get ported over to, you know, either 2D or, you know, that don't use too much 3D, but then they can still support all the Steam integration and the rest that.
Or you could just go to Codeweavers and get a crossover license for probably a fraction of the price.
You could, that's true.
Well, let's move on. This is the bring me.
Sure. Well, you want to move on to the more interesting topic of Greenlight?
Yes, because there's at least some funny in here.
75 titles got approved this last fortnight. 35 of them are for our platform.
Yay.
We have skimmed over and selected just 3 to possibly mention. Do you want to lead, DerRidda?
Yes, because TBR, a game that is 17 years old, and I have last played around 12 years ago. It's a really simple-looking isometric 2D MMORPG. It did free-to-play before anybody even said free-to-play, and it did pay-to-win before anybody even said pay-to-win.
Nice.
I don't know how it is today, but back in the day it was a clusterfuck of crazy, poorly implemented stuff, but it was still kind of fun in its own way.
It still looks like that now, if you look at the screenshots.
Especially when you were pushing some people around and pushed a noob with like 3 other guys into a way too dangerous zone for him and made him pull aggro, the strongest mob, to then kill him and steal his stuff.
Wow.
This game is silly. I don't know how much it has changed over the years, but well, if you want an MMORPG that has been around for a while, longer than World of Warcraft, and will probably still be around when World of Warcraft is dead, you might want to look at TILA.
Yep, you might enjoy it. Another game that got approved, Roundabout, we mentioned in a previous cast.
Does it have swings?
Yes, I think, in one of the screenshots. It's a limousine driving game where the car constantly keeps spinning and you have to navigate it around the environment like that. It's weird. It's got crazy taxi stylings for the art. Looks super enjoyable, but kind of crazy. Probably not as mad as Goat Simulator.
It looks made for YouTube.
That's got approved. Yes, it's a
PewDiePie.
And the final game I looked at was Project After. It's an open world RPG. The environment is randomly generated, it's cel shaded, it looks kind of interesting. They are going to be running a Kickstarter in June, so we're going to be mentioning that once or twice in crowdfunding in the next episode, so have a look at that. So, do you want to talk about more depressing things?
Go ahead, you can lead that because
Well, this is going to be slightly complicated. We're going to gloss over some things. Don't get mad at us, we're just sort of going to discuss around the topic. Project Zomboid has been in the news recently because they've been shipping, let's say, some code, but apparently it was just one file, but we don't really know. Someone who was decompiling the game because they were interested, I don't know why they were doing that either, they posted on the forum and said, hey, I noticed this file that's LGPL'd or something, I would like access to the source. Do you have any changes to it and the rest? Various people on the forum posted back and said, hey, stop attacking our lovely game. These are users, not obviously developers. Then the developer noted, one of the community members contacted the developer posted and said, that must be an old file from something, we'll remove it. Then a couple of gaming Linux sites jumped in and said that people shouldn't be harassing game developers for this sort of stuff. Then people popped up and said that GPL zealots should go away, and it basically devolved into an even more complicated drama than it needed to be. The initial person asking probably should have been a bit more diplomatic and said, hi, I've noticed this file, how come it's there?
To be fair, he started off fairly diplomatic, but when they were not producing the file, he was getting kind of angry, like, it's in the license.
Yeah.
While he himself has violated the EULA by decompiling the game.
Decompiling it, yes. And then the developer, while they're right in saying that, oops, this was a mistake, we'll take it out, they probably shouldn't have been shipping it in the first place because it's still under someone else's copyright, even though this guy couldn't have requested changes because it's not under his. And then some other people on Twitter started, it's very complicated and it's
ultimately pointless.
Yes. What should happen in this sort of thing? You should try and be as diplomatic as possible on everyone, on all sides. It's best not to blame anyone in the community in general. You can't say GPL zealots because this person's just a random person that probably doesn't really understand the license that well. And it's made far more drama than it needs to, and please. I didn't really want to cover the topic, but yes, that game is pretty neat. It's a zombie survival isometric world that it's sort of like DayZ. You've got to scavenge and survive, and you have to monitor your food and survival and weapons and everything. It's kind of neat.
It's the original gangster of early access alpha funding titles. It has been in there so long and it's still not close to being finished. Had so many reworks. Some instances of legitimate drama along its way, but it's still...
Yep, they lost the code at some point when they had a crash, or one of the hard disks and the rest.
No, it was a break-in, and both laptops with most of the code for that moment got stolen, and the backup was quite old.
But unlike Towns, I think they're actually going to manage to finish this game.
Yes, because they're actually working on it still.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, don't expect this game to be finished anytime soon. It takes its time. It's like Duke Nukem a bit, just that you can play it already.
Duke Nukem, but you can play all the alphas in the middle.
It had about as many engine changes as Duke Nukem already.
Oh, that's harsh.
It's still based on Java, but they went from, we are completely hand-drawn 2D sprite, that's great, isn't it? Then they figure out, hey, we have a lot of items, it's kind of hard work. So they started exporting all their sprites from 3D models into sprites, and then they said, fuck it, we're just going to use 3D and make it look like 2D. But yeah, let's go on.
Flagship. a first-person RTS, which sounds mad in itself, is coming in 2015 for Linux. It's Unity-based, and the interesting thing is, looking at the trailer, you're looking at a holographic projected display of a space battle on a table, and then the camera moves, and you actually notice you're in one of the ships on the little display, and you're in the space battle, and you're commanding all your ships around from that perspective. So it seems like an Oculus Rift sort of targeted game, but very interesting.
Yes, indeed. It get a distinct BSG vibe from it, Battlestar Galactica, and that always makes me warm and fuzzy inside. So I will keep an eye on that and see how that turns out. Even though the bridge is kind of silly, it's like the most exposed bridge in the world, all windows. If that were anywhere realistic, one like attack to that bridge and oops, entire command center extinguished. But yeah, I guess they have to do it kind of like that to make it work, to actually be there, the commander on the battlefield, and actually see stuff you would normally see from inside a bridge of any kind of spaceship or real ship.
I think at the time when I added this into the show notes, I mentioned it in our admin channel that it would be really nice if this had some multiplayer, sort of like Space Team, where you can coordinate your attack with your friends, just by shouting to them, and they control other fleets. And I reckon that multiplayer would be pretty damn fun. Let's move on to crowdfunding.
Yes.
I added this title. I have no idea how you meant to say it. Shyness?
That's bloody shyness it is.
We'll go with that one. It's a cel-shaded RPG. It's Unreal Engine 4, and that's on Kickstarter. They have a fairly modest goal for that, and it should be met probably by middle of next week.
That's really modest.
It's got, actually even quicker than that. It's got 8 days left. It's pretty damn good looking.
Are they already mostly done or far into development? Because 100...
It's not much, is it?
It's nothing. It's suspiciously low. But yeah, it does look good.
Maybe it's just so they can relax. But yeah, they're 100k to get PC, Mac and Linux, 140k for PS4, and they don't actually have another entry above that, which is even more surprising that they've only got one stretch goal.
But yeah, it looks like they have already done a lot. There are at least some environments, videos and stuff like that, and in what looks like in-engine screenshots.
It might be that they've done so much of it that they just need additional funding just to get through the last, release phase of it. Because, they're targeting Q1.
That's quite soon.
So that might just, to cover expenses for them for the summer and winter. So yeah, that game looks rather interesting. If you're interested by what we've said, have a look. The game is called Northern Shadow. It's on Greenlight. I shall share a link.
What's it about?
It's an action strategy RPG. It's first person. I don't really know much more than that. They have probably got the most confusing trailer I've ever seen there.
But that does look sexy.
Mm-hmm. What was that other medieval game we were talking about a few casts ago?
Was it called Kingdom Come Deliverance?
That was it, yeah.
Yeah, the Kingdom Come is really going for the 100% authentic medieval world. No dragons, no magic.
We're getting quite a lot of these medieval games at the moment. I kind of like it, because you can get really interesting rocks.
Just swords and pestilence.
Hopefully wenches.
Yes, hopefully.
Does anyone have anything else you'd like us to mention before we sign off?
So, I guess that's it for this week.
We did not mention TrueCrypt, but I think it's a little out of our scope, really.
Yes, that's not really what we cover here. Shall we conclude this?
Right, yes, I think we're done.
Thanks everybody for coming and listening in.
Yes, it's been wonderful, guys.
Thanks, guys.
God damn it, Cheese. Hello.
My apologies. Continue.
That's okay. Well, thank you for listening. As ever, you can contact us, cast@steamlug.org. As we said, if you want to suggest any events or any games you'd like to play, or, just contact us about any news that we want to mention. We do give out Steam keys sometimes. We do have a few at the moment sitting in our repository that we're going to give out. We're going to hold a competition on the discussion forums, just a little giveaway of some titles. I've completely forgotten what they are. Cheers, can you remember?
I think we had some Witcher 2. I also have a copy of Hand of Fate to give out, and maybe 1 or 2 keys for The Fall.
Anyway, thank you for listening.
See ya.
Cheerio.
I've got squat.
You should see a doctor for that.
I will. Yes, thanks everybody for coming and listening in.
Can you say that again, DerRidda? You're crackling.
Thanks everybody for coming and listening in. Am I louder now than before?
You're still rather softly spoken, I have to say. So do we certainly think that Cheese is going to slip through this one?
I think he did his tweets, he said, see you at the event, and I think he has just simply forgotten that it's the second week. And
that's fair enough.
we are not doing more than just an event. So this should be a brief excursion then.
I imagine so.